Pigweed here. Today we review an IPA and ask, why don't we know more about William McKinley? All right. Hello.
Hey, good to see you, Pigweeds. How about some beer and conversation?
That's an excellent idea. What are we drinking?
Well, I got this new IPA from Smuttynose.
Smuttynose.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds very good. What's
Okay.
on your mind?
Well, I'm wondering about William McKinley and why, what do we know about this guy?
So, if you were at trivia night and somebody said, name 4 presidents that been assassinated. No. How many presidents have been assassinated and who? Could you do it?
Okay. We got Lincoln, we got McKinley, we got Garfield, we got Kennedy.
Okay, there you go. So that's about all I know about William McKinley. He is the trivia night 4th guy.
Yeah. So I remember when listening to the presidential podcast.
Yeah.
I do remember that he was shot in the stomach at the World Fair or something like that.
Yeah.
That's like basically all I know about William McKinley.
I mean, there's a 2-term guy. I mean, anyway, I think we ought to. His name has come up lately because of Donald Trump. But let's see what's going on.
Okay. So what's going on with this beer? This is Smuttynose Finest Kind IPA. It has an otter and a RV on the front of the can.
And some guys and some silhouette of some guys in camping chairs.
Yeah.
And it's it's really smelly in a very delicious way.
Mm-hmm.
What would resiny maybe?
Yeah. Oh, it has a resiny flavor to it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a very interesting IPA. Definitely that resiny hop feel. And the aroma's pretty good.
The hop feel, they talk about that clean finish where you can barely taste it.
No, it's not that.
It's not that. It just coats your tongue. It just lays on your tongue when you're done swallowing it.
No, this is very, very good. I mean, you have to like that kind of thing. Yeah, and I do.
And if you're new to craft beers, this would probably be upsetting. But
probably not your first choice if you're new to craft beer. But if you like IPAs, if you like that resiny hop stuff, this is good. Smuttynose, good job. Send us another one.
Very good.
All right, so William McKinley. So
poor guy. He's just been relegated to a trivia answer, and I'm saying. Probably more interesting than that.
Well, for one thing, he was a complete badass.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. So he fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
And he apparently did some suicide missions.
Yes.
And things just outstanding bravery.
Right. Like delivering a message across a battlefield, running
across the battlefield
to deliver the message to it.
All over.
He's that guy.
Yeah, he was that guy.
And he went from an enlisted guy to lieutenant colonel, or I'm not sure what his final rank was, but
brevet major. I don't know what brevet means, but rose to the rank of major just because of his courage and effectiveness on the battlefield.
Yeah, and there were a number of presidents who fought during the Civil War. He was the last one and served under Rutherford B. Hayes, which I also don't know anything about.
Right.
But he was a president, and he became the governor of Ohio.
Well, he started off as a representative.
Yes.
And he was in Congress for many terms, and then lost, and then became governor of Ohio.
But during that time, he pushed for tariffs.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was even called the McKinley Tariff Plan or something like that. Yeah. So that was enacted while he was congressman.
He's apparently the only president to serve in the House of Representatives and not the Senate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's common for someone to have been a governor and then to become president, but apparently it's...
Or a senator.
Yeah.
But
not just the House and then to become a president. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Right. From an abolitionist family. So, which would...
He was a Methodist, a very devout Methodist. Yeah. Okay. He lost his fortune in some friend's scam.
I know that.
A friend, he trusted a friend and signed on to some bank loan, and then lost all his money as a result of that, which was too bad.
I mean, it's a sort of a hallmark of some of these guys who, you have failures and you just don't
let it
fall
end
on
you.
your face.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He was apparently a man of the people. He had what they called the front porch campaign. He invited thousands of visitors to his home in Canton, Ohio, instead of traveling. I know he did travel. He did a bunch of whistle-stop tours. And apparently he changed campaigning. The way it used to be, up until McKinley, from what I understand, usually the presidential candidate didn't really campaign for himself. He relied on other people to campaign for him.
Okay.
And McKinley was one of the first to actually go out and campaign for himself.
He was pressing the flesh out there.
Yes, that's right.
Out there, and
all that kind of stuff.
Well,
that's
good.
right. He was one of the most popular presidents of his era.
I mean, poor guy. Well, we'll get into why he's remembered so little. He's not poorly, just...
Right. There was also this big dispute that doesn't make much sense to us right now, because right now our money isn't based on anything. Back then, there were questions about whether money should be based on gold or silver.
Yes.
And he was an advocate of gold-based currency. And apparently silver-based currency, some people preferred a silver-based currency because it was changed more rapidly or something. It was more inflationary. I don't know. Something. I don't understand the economics of it. He was a gold standard guy.
Well, got to give that to him. He won first in 1996.
Yeah.
Correct?
1896.
1896. Yes. And then he so when was the Spanish Civil War?
Oh, good question. It was during his presidency, but he won it quickly, which I think was 1898. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, 1898. And they won the war quickly, and we got some interesting spoils out of that war.
So what's going on here? The Cubans wanted independence from Spain.
Yeah.
And we're already into full-blown manifest destiny. Like, the Europeans don't need to be owning
when was the Monroe Doctrine
in our backyards?
Yeah, when was the Monroe would have predated this,
definitely.
Right? So basically, we're saying we don't want any European interference in our hemisphere.
So this was an opportunity to go. All right, we need to boot these Spaniards out.
Yeah.
But did not seize Cuba directly.
No.
As a result,
which I kind of wish we did, but we got Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines out of it.
Right, and Teddy Roosevelt was instrumental
San Juan Hill and all that kind of stuff. That's right.
Battle.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's when he caught the eye of.
No, so my understanding is that McKinley was never a huge fan of Teddy Roosevelt. And a lot of people thought that Roosevelt was too brash.
Yes,
a
lot of people didn't want him.
I mean, what I've heard about Roosevelt, he was kind of a bit of a weirdo. You know, he would go out and just go for morning swims across the Potomac, just because.
Yeah, but kind of a man's man.
Yeah.
Big game hunting kind of a guy, and maybe not cut out for national politics is what I think a lot of the people around him, and they're like, God forbid this guy should become president.
And then he does.
Well,
there was a time in American history where if you wanted to sideline somebody and make them irrelevant, you made them vice president. Because the vice president didn't do anything.
Right. We'll just take this wind right out of his sails.
That's right.
And make him vice president. And
so during McKinley's time, the U.S. became a global power. The Spanish-American War was one example of that. We annexed Hawaii. Apparently,
so that wasn't part of the spoils of the Spanish-American War.
No.
What was it doing out there? And then how did we just say, you know what? That's going to be part of the United States.
Well, I think they thought it was just strategic.
I know, but from whom? Did the Brits...
No, I don't think anybody owned it before we annexed it.
Right, it's so far away from everything.
Right,
I mean, you look on a map; it is just so far away. So, annex. That's kind of a nice way.
Yeah,
saying
it's actually a huge mystery how the people actually got out to those islands. I read a book about how.
Can you canoe from Polynesia to Hawaii?
I know it's absolutely crazy how these people managed to do all this stuff. Anyway, but they got there and we annexed them. They didn't become a state until 1959, but we annexed them before then. So
Right, so it was already obviously a military base, a naval base,
right,
when it was just what Guam is now, like a kind of
I guess it was a protectorate or a territory or whatever. Yeah. So apparently McKinley was big on modernizing the military, especially the Navy. So that I think one of the things that you mentioned that Mount Denali, that we're going to talk about this in a minute, the whole, things about the mountain. But one of the questions is, why did Trump decide to rename Denali to be McKinley again?
Right.
So, and some people have talked about these parallels between Trump and McKinley.
So one is, are we just going to unwoke the place?
Exactly.
Or does he have some particular connection to McKinley? And
there are a few. There's tariffs. Yeah. They both like tariffs. They both want to modernize the military. They're both sort of populists.
Yeah. But back to I think primarily it's the tariffs thing. So McKinley thought that to boost a way of boosting American manufacturing would be through tariffs.
Yeah.
And tariffs, it's not cut and dry, right? It's not like super high tariffs are great. No tariffs are even better, right?
Right.
Obviously, we wouldn't be still discussing this if it was clear what is the best approach.
That's right.
And in fact, inflation did rise under McKinley as a result of his tariffs, but at the same time, you're boosting American manufacturing. So the trade-off is more American jobs and higher prices for American goods, or fewer American jobs and lower prices for the consumer. I mean, it's the balance that everybody's fighting to strike.
Yeah, there's no perfect answer.
But I would think that would be the incentive. And so back to the mountain. Is it unwokiness or is it his affection for McKinley? It's hard to say.
It is hard to say. I mean, I kind of like the unwokiness side of it. I mean, do you remember when Obama had his first term? What he immediately did was go around the world on an apology tour.
Yeah.
Apologizing for all the evils of America and how bad we are and everything. Right. And I think he got the Nobel Prize for that or something, right? And Trump is basically like, forget that. We're not apologizing. Here we are. We're the greatest nation on the earth, and we're not gonna go backwards. We're gonna go forwards.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that's a tie-in between McKinley and Trump is under McKinley's presidency, we got Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, Hawaii, and Trump is saying, well, we want Greenland, we want Canada, we want Panama, right?
Yeah. Why do we have
Where
to
do we
stop
lose our vision?
Yes. Because, I mean, I realized that we were always pushing, towards the West and then, going to the moon, right? I mean, this was all part of, this is what we do, we're Americans. And then we start apologizing for ourselves.
We've just lost the vision of being an outward-facing, growing society.
Yeah.
And, that's too bad. So I think that's another reason that he likes McKinley.
They probably admired McKinley.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think of Trump as a presidential scholar, but maybe more than I give him credit.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much he reads or what, but so McKinley made America an empire. Another thing that's key about him is he realigned and consolidated the power of the Republican Party, and the Republican Party stayed in power for decades after McKinley.
Okay.
So that's another
until FDR, I suppose.
Yeah. So that's another thing that that's a tie
kind
in
of
between
remade the party.
Right. Yeah. And he issued executive orders that dismissed civil servants. So that's another Trumpian thing, getting rid of too many government employees. And some people would say that McKinley could be considered the originator of America First.
Oh, okay.
So I think there are a lot of tie-ins between them. Not completely. There are some things where they're very different. But I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of interesting connections.
Let's go back to the trivia question.
Yeah.
So at that time, I mean, there was a time when you could just like walk up to the White House, like just a guy on the street, and say, "Is Thomas Jefferson home?"
Can I talk?
I mean, I think like that was the
beer.
That was the vibe that America wanted.
Yes.
Right? We don't have kings sitting in castles. Right. This guy, this is the people's house. Yeah. He's just a guy just like you. And so that was the vibe that we wanted to have. And so the civil service, the Secret Service had been established for what purpose?
Yeah, this was amazing when I found out about this. No, I knew that the Secret Service had a strange collection of things.
But they're not right. But it wasn't bodyguard.
No, it was counterfeit money.
Primarily.
They were mostly involved in figuring out who's counterfeiting.
So what's up with that?
So when we were doing research on McKinley, during that time, somewhere between a third and a half of the money in people's cash registers and in their wallets was counterfeit money. How can an economy function like that?
Yes, because, I mean, how do you not get massive inflation with a bunch of fake money just pumped in from nowhere?
Yeah, it's bewildering.
And then how would you pull it out of the economy without just taking it away and telling the
grandma,
local grocer,
sorry, all that. Sorry,
this
Grandma.
Is fake. It's going in the fire.
All that money in your mattress, it's no good. We're just going to burn it.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how they resolved the problem.
Yeah.
But that was, I mean, they were still a bit of a bodyguard role, but like you said, that was primarily how it was formed. And then, so this is the Pan American Expo.
Uh-huh.
Which I guess is a kind of a World's Fair, maybe just a Western Hemisphere World's Fair in Buffalo.
Right.
And he
sort of pushed back. He's in a line shaking hands with everybody.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And he's telling his Secret Service guys, they are there.
Yeah.
He's just like, you're crowding me here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here to meet the people.
Yeah, right.
And then who is this guy?
Oh, okay. Leon Zongus or some weird name.
He has a very...
Leon CZ... It's one of these places where they don't have vowels.
Eastern European name.
CZOLGOSZ.
Wow, that is so many consonants.
Yeah.
But he was... but I believe he was a American-born citizen of immigrants. And... who are these anarchists?
Yeah,
what are they doing? What are they thinking that what does an anarchist think that the world? Well, first off, he got fired. He got laid off by Doge. And basically, he was a government worker who got fired.
Yeah.
So that's his first grudge.
Right.
Then he decides. So he works for the government, gets fired. Then he decides government's bad. I'm going to be an anarchist. And what are they thinking? What is an anarchist thinking?
I don't know. Write that down. We need to talk about that sometime. What does an anarchist think?
Is there a philosophy behind it? I mean, what is the organizing? Or you're saying we're better off if we're completely unorganized. There's no police. There's no government, and things are just going to go swimmingly.
Okay, so shooting completely from the hip here. It reminds me. It reminds me of paganism. The idea that order spontaneously arises out of chaos.
Right.
That like, as long as if we like throw some bombs and kill people and cause a bunch of chaos, then something beautiful will spontaneously arise out of that.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense.
I mean, where have you ever seen anything like that? It doesn't, when there is no organizing principle, everything collapses.
Right.
But in your silly little mind, no, what springs from it is a orderly commune where everything's
because we've destroyed the evil systems and now all the good stuff can rise.
Really, all right,
yeah.
Put it on the list. Anarchism.
It's a stupid
So anyway, this guy decides. I don't know if he's mental illness, if he's begrudgingly or if he's filled with.
Wasn't there something about him being appointed to some position and then losing it?
Yes, right. So he's a disgruntled employee. Plus. Mentally ill, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, hung out with a bunch of Antifa guys.
And he's just really upset that there aren't more vowels in his name.
Yes. And so he shoots him 2 times in the tummy. And he survived for
a couple days or something?
Something like that. Yeah.
And then Teddy Roosevelt becomes president.
And then he was but this is back in the days when it didn't take 25 years to execute a man. He only got 6 months or something like that.
Is that right? And then they
properly execucued.
Okay. Did they hang him or what?
I don't know what they did back then. Yeah, I would say New York and I'm going with hanging, but I couldn't tell you. Now, what do you know? As I said in the trivia question, he's not the only one to be assassinated.
Right.
And there was also a man named...
A bystander.
A guy named Lincoln, and his wife was Mary Todd Lincoln, and his son... Robert
Todd Lincoln.
Yeah, I think he had that. Yeah, he did. It wasn't hyphenated back then.
Right.
But
so he was there at Abraham Lincoln's bedside when he died.
Right. Well, he was there at Ford's Theater when he was actually shot.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And then he was there when Garfield was.
Yes, Garfield was shot at a whistle stop at a train station.
And
I don't know what he was doing there, but
for some reason Robert Todd was there. And then he was at the fair when McKinley was shot.
That poor son of a gun. I mean, he's just...
Yeah. Can
you imagine his view of the world and America and the presidency and whatever?
So then apparently Robert Todd Lincoln goes before Congress and says, guys, I'm sick of this. Will you please, stop this nonsense?
Can the Secret Service...
Can somebody protect these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yes, I think, right. It was a combination of... It was the third... assassination and Robert Todd's testimony that they're like, all right, the Secret Service, you guys got better things to do than look for silly money.
Well, I mean, apparently that was a big problem then too, but this is just another thing.
The Treasury Department or somebody else can handle that. All right, can we just focus on making sure presidents don't get killed?
which they're really not doing very well.
So this was so if this was 1901, so they've got 62 years. I mean, that's not too bad for Kennedy.
Yeah,
and then another 60 years before. What are the relevant facts we know about the guy in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Oh my gosh!
Basically zero.
Yeah. Once again,
what is up with that?
Curiosity.
No
curiosity.
No, there are no journalists who want to dig into his past, his motivations, his associations. It's worse than the lone gunman. He's not even the lone gunman. He's just an irrelevant teenager and moving on here.
It doesn't make any sense.
Unbelievable.
Think of the obsession. Think of the obsession that we've had with the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
For decades. I mean, Kennedy was buried the day I was born.
Okay.
And for my entire lifetime, there's been this obsession with the Kennedy assassination.
We're still not done with it. We're just releasing new files.
I know. We're still not done. And here's this guy who tries to shoot the president, and we know nothing. There's no information.
No interest, no curiosity.
No. It's absolutely astonishing. I don't get it at all.
The only 22-year-old in America
with no social profile,
no social media presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, no friends. Nobody. He's never talked to anybody.
But he apparently traveled to various places around the world. Nobody's followed up on that. Nobody's followed up on how he got to where he was. I mean, oh my gosh, there's so many questions about this guy, and nobody has any curiosity at all.
Not interested.
So I think there's another thing that we should talk about McKinley, which is Mount McKinley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Mount McKinley is the tallest mountain in North America. And apparently it's
That would have been the trivia answer. That's until Obama changed it. But.
Yeah, but I think there's also something about it being the tallest mountain in the world from base to summit. Like other mountains are higher than McKinley, but there's not as much distance from base to summit as McKinley.
That's interesting. Yes, I think you're right. So Everest is already sitting on top of a high plateau.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, right.
So it was called Denali, which means the high one or the tall one in the native language, and then it was renamed. It was called Mount McKinley by a gold prospector in 1896 in honor of William McKinley. And then Obama renamed it Denali.
So he would have, right. So he had not been assassinated. He would have been just recently
inaugurated president.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. And then Obama renamed it Denali. This seems like part of his apology tour thing, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that with anything. Any town named Washington, Illinois. Like, well, originally by the native so-and-sos, it was called, right? And you can just go on forever deciding.
Are we just going to rename everything in America?
Everything, but we're going to
now, fortunately, the Chesapeake Bay has already got an Indian name. We don't have to rename that.
Right. And this, you know, Milwaukee,
Delaware
Waukesha,
Bay. We probably have to rename that. Yeah, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. I mean, what did the natives call it? Maybe we should change that back to what the natives called it. Yeah,
big pond.
I know. So this is apparently this mountain is one of the hardest to climb, even though it's not the tallest. The ascent is supposed to be really bad, and there are extreme weather conditions on the peak.
Now, would it be worse than Sugarloaf Mountain in Montgomery County? That you
I think so.
Hike up in your flip-flops on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, so worse than that.
Apparently, winter temperatures often plunge to minus 75 degrees at the peak.
So what is it? You don't hear a lot of credit for the man who conquered Mount McKinley, but it sounds kind of...
Well, actually, you got it wrong. The first team to successfully reach the summit was by Janet Stuck, Julia Karstens, Sally Harper, and Amanda Tatum.
Some chicks?
Yeah, I just made that up. It was Hudson Stuck, Harry Karstens, Walter Harper, and Robert Tatum.
Oh,
of course it was men. Yeah, come on.
It seems...
Yeah.
That was going to be a bit of news there, but it's just regular white guys.
It's just regular white guys. That's what it always is.
All right. Well, so now we know there is more to Mr. McKinley than a trivia pub.
Actually,
answer.
A very interesing fellow and a brave guy and a good guy. You know what we didn't discuss is
Mrs. McKinley.
Mrs. McKinley, who had epilepsy, she had other kinds of problems. They lost 2 kids. They had a very difficult life together, but he was devoted to her his entire life.
Yes, she was. She was very debilitated by her depression and her conditions, and.
So he was an honorable man. Now, that is unfortunately one thing that McKinley and Trump do not have in common. But
sticking by the old broad.
Sticking by. That's right. But way to go, William. You set a good example.
All right, good job.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.